outside wearing trash bags to lose weight so that we can fit in the 9 light class versus the 9 heavy class experience at 9 years old, trying to play a game to just have fun,
Right.
suffering in silence. So I wanted to figure out not only to fix it for myself, but like, how can I help other people? And that's how this whole thing came about.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another amazing episode of Behind the Door. But as always, before I start, y'all know I always have to ask my guests, have you checked in on you today, Steve? How are you?
Ooh, I'm doing good. I'm checking in on myself right now as you speak.
Great. I love it. Y'all know we got to make sure the wellness and our mental come first in everything that we do. And behind the door, so many of us are doing some amazing things, but we forget that being amazing means checking in on ourselves. So as you guys are listening, I want you to take a second, check in on you too. Make sure you're good, okay? Make sure. But as we continue, I'm so excited. Y'all already heard me say Steve, Mr. Steve Davis Jr. I'm calling the whole government name. How are you again? We are so glad for you to come on the platform and just tell the people a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Erica, for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm so honored to be on the show and, be able to have this conversation. And, as you know, I'll tell people I am a former athlete who has really turned my pain into a purpose of helping other athletes really figure out what's next in their life, and find their identity and their fulfillment outside of the confines of just the game. And a lot of us don't get a lot of support in that. I didn't have a support in that. And that's what really drove my passion to figure out a space where I can support other athletes to kind of get through the mud, reestablish their confidence, and really find their why and drive towards their why and whatever's next in their life. So I'm super honored to be here to talk more about it, but also talk about how coaches play a part of this too. So
Great. You definitely know we're going to get in with the coaches. But starting off, you said a former athlete. I know you also played collegiate ball, but let's just tell the people, how did you get into sports? What made you just say, sports is something that I'm going to take on in my journey in life?
yeah, great question. I started playing sports as soon as I was able to run. My dad had me involved in a lot of different things. I would say early on when I was a kid, baseball was my first love. I played baseball, since I was about 3 years old, and just kind of kept that going. And then I started to think I was going to be a basketball player. So I started really diving into basketball and baseball as like the two main things that I was focused on. Coincidentally, football wasn't my thing, but football became my thing, as far as the driver that gave me to the different opportunities. But when I was a kid, I only played football because my dad wanted me to play football. And I was 9 years old, went to go play for a team. And the thing that really irked me at the time is that the experience wasn't the best. The games was fun. And I realized I was really good because I got MVP of the team my first year ever playing football. Playing defensive end, I don't know, like 30 sacks. I'm a pat my stats, you know what I mean?
Let's go.
but the experience wasn't the best. Like I didn't like the way the coaching kind of like was very militant, kind of had us in an environment where we weren't really focusing on having fun. It was all about pressure, and it kind of felt like they were making us animals a little bit. So I ended up quitting the next year to come back, but I didn't play again until high school. I thought still like baseball and basketball was going to be my thing. But after realizing I'm not getting above 6'2", I'm not a guard, like basketball started to fall off a little bit. But I played football again in high school because I had some classmates in middle school who were going to high school. I was going to a different school. They were talking mad junk, saying like they're going to play football. And like, Steve, you can't play football. You too nice of a guy. And I am a very nice guy. Don't get me wrong. But on the football field, I become something different. So that was my motivation to get back into the game. And I decided to go to the next high school and play. And I only wanted to play against this team where these guys that I went to middle school with were going. And I found out we weren't playing them on the schedule. So I almost quit again. But my dad had to convince me this time, like, no, I want you to stick this out. And I ended up getting MVP again of the team by sticking it out. And after that, the offers starting to come in. I got to play varsity my sophomore year, and football was the ticket that drove to college and landed me to the University of Minnesota.
Let's go. But did y'all hear what he say? MVP? He pat himself on the back twice. He let y'all know I was that guy. I was that man on it. And I also want to draw back to, as we're talking about that, you said that it was a time when sports first, they made you guys feel like a militant or something different. Can you zone in on that? Because as we're
Yeah,
here for behind the doors, and we know coaches take on a lot, but sometimes they take on so much that they can actually make a kid not want to play. So, what was those feelings and things that you feel a coach should look at to be, hey, I shouldn't be doing this, because a kid really may sacrifice something they love because how we've been
yeah.
treated.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you got some guys that have their own agenda and own vendetta, and really, the competition really drives that, right? And they want their team to be the best team so that they can beat everybody. So they're going to push their team to limits and do everything that, in the old school mentality way of like, you got to do all the grinding, you got to push through, you got to punish them, you got to do all these different things and critical feedback, all these great things that, you know, I would say in the olden days, like, yeah, it may have worked, but when you're a kid and you're playing, like, you don't really know all that stuff. Like, you're just going out there to play, but you really just want to have fun. Like,
Right.
you're trying to build camaraderie with the team. You're trying to have fun on the field. And if you go to practice every day and you feel like, oh, I don't want to go here because it's like we're gonna be running, he's gonna be yelling at us, and it just feels like an anxiety like environment. It's not fun for the kid. And then, you're only doing it because somebody's telling you to do it versus like I have this love and passion for it, which was the opposite for me for baseball. Like baseball was my favorite sport because of the team. Like we had an environment where everybody was having fun in practice. We was having fun in games. We hung out together. The coaches really got to know us, and it kind of felt like a family. Whereas in football, it just felt like I was another name there. And they were telling me to stay in my lane and like we had to do these different things. Oh, and by the way, it was hot, 100-degree weather. I'm from St. Louis. They had us outside wearing trash bags to lose weight so that we can fit in the 9 light class versus the 9 heavy class. So imagine feeling like you're going through a military experience at 9 years old, trying to play a game to just have fun.
Right.
And that was what I reflected on.
Man, that is a lot for you to say at 9 years old. I was assuming and thinking like the middle school, but you said 9 years old of how that. And one of the things I love you mentioned also was the old way. And that's what we have to change now. Sports and these kids are nowhere near like how we used to be. You can't use that same element, and change is important and it's vital. And one of the things that you teach on within what you do, which I want you to go more in on, Scribe Higher, after sports and be young. But if you are constantly getting moved as a baby, it's no way for you to think of Scribe Higher. You become, like you
Mhm.
said, anxiety is so overwhelming from that. So, what is the value or the importance of sports leaders changing now? We're not saying sports leaders you can't do and coaches what you love doing, but being that you work with so many athletes, how vital is them for them to change what they used to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if you are in that position where you're around and you are leading a group of people, specifically kids, you got to know that role is something to not take for granted. Like they look up to you as a coach, but you're more than a coach. You're like a father figure. You're like a teacher. And the pace that you set in the environment has ripples around the entire team. And if you think about the experience and go back to even yourself as a kid, I think a lot of them go back to what their own experience of what they went through and think that's the way to continue to forward.
Mhm.
But it's really about empathizing about the experience for the youth or for the athlete to not only learn how to play the game and win, like everybody wants to win, but at what cost? Like sports are supposed to be a vehicle and there's so many things that we can gain from it, but it's supposed to be a vehicle where you learn how to battle life experiences. You get those intangibles that help you get through a lot of ups and downs in life, whether that's resilience, teaches you leadership, teaches you teamwork, camaraderie, all those different things. And as a leader of a group of kids or a group of athletes, how do you help influence all those positive things that sports provides with that environment? And thinking about the experience that they have more so than trying to get the chip. Like everybody wants the chip,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you get the best out of your players? You got to get to know them. You got to create an environment where they feel like they can belong, they can have fun. Like fun is the number one factor. And as they learn about things that are happening, like mistakes are going to happen, but letting them learn through those mistakes, not pointing out mistakes as a bad thing. Obviously, we don't want to have flags on the field as a football player, or you don't want to foul. But when you do, and sports, for a lot of kids, it starts early and it drives all the way through as far as they can go, and their identity is latched to it. So if you can't mentalize like how these different lessons are going to help you in life, it's going to hurt. It's going to be worse when you get done playing because you have those same thought process and mindset about just like I gotta win, I gotta drive. Like this is the culture that I was built in, and it's not gonna work. It's gonna burn you out in life. So I think it's a huge responsibility as a coach to think about how do you create a positive environment where not only are they learning how to win, but really learning how to just grow through failures,
Yeah.
experiences, taking those life lessons, and create an environment where they can like feel like they enjoy the experience because they're gonna remember those teammates. They're gonna remember that experience for the rest of their lives, whether good or bad. But you want to be able to create those positive ones, right?
Definitely. And again, more things that you put out in Nuggets was having sports to be a vehicle, but you don't want that vehicle to be a fear vehicle. That now you walk through life in fear and things. And before we started here, just some things that you talk about was the fear of unknown when you play sports, the identity part of it, of how that affected you. And so, what you say that led to the work that you're doing now to make sure our youth and our student athletes beyond
Yeah,
sports understand who they are and why they play sports compared to you play the sports that you thought you loved, but somebody or a coach was still living in the old times and put fear in you.
yeah,
And now you're at that walking across the stage and you're saying, what's next? So talk about your
yeah,
platform of how that developed from you being a student athlete into what you do.
yeah. No, a lot of it is through sport. We grow this attachment, right? Especially if you've been playing as long as I've been playing, 3 years old in a sport, right? Um, you grow to love the environment. You're kind of pushed through that process. It's kind of like you are nurtured through that, right? And to a certain extent, you get your validation out of that. Like your skill set gets you cheers, gets your family behind you. Everybody's kind of hoping and wishing on your dream of making it to the next level. And you feel like your worth is put all into that
Yeah.
because everything in your environment has kind of put you in that position. So then when you get through to the next level, or if you don't get through to the next level, or you have an injury and sports is over, a lot of us don't know how to handle that because we haven't been taught or trained to do anything else.
Right.
We've been taught and trained to seek validation based upon our performance in this one lane. And it is very detrimental to our own mental health to not associate ourselves with anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You get out into the real world and sports is no longer there, and you feel like, well, what do I have to offer? How do people see me in the same light? You know, I went through that experience myself, playing football and going to try to make it to the NFL, and my dreams got cut short. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, wow, like all these people had these expectations of me making it to the next level. I had these expectations of me making it to the next level, and it didn't happen. And now I don't know what I'm about to do. Like, I got a degree, but I didn't really pay attention too much to all of the different things that I needed to in my degree because I was focused on football.
Right.
So now I'm in this world trying to figure out how to interview for the first time, how to like get my own apartment, all these life skills like I did not develop at all. And it was a struggle, just trying to pick up those pieces. And the biggest thing that I was very just like harping and like surprised about is that how much of myself felt like it was missing because football wasn't there anymore. I thought even preparing with getting the degree that would be like at least I could find a job and I'll be able to like maintain. But it still was something about that identity of feeling that validation of my performance in that space where everybody knew I was important
Yeah.
and now people don't care. Like your name, your jersey's hung up and you are a number that's gone. Nobody's even reaching out. Nobody knows what's going on in your life and you're trying to figure it out and you're suffering. And that was like the catalyst for me to like not only try to figure out my own stuff, but as I thought about it, I was also just trying to empathize with my own teammates. A lot of them come from places where, it ain't the best. They try to get out of those places. And then all of a sudden they back in those places doing the same thing with a college degree. And it's like, how do we get here? We put a lot of time and energy into this thing and then this thing is over with. Now we're all lost. It hurt me. So I wanted to figure out not only to fix it for myself, but like, how can I help other people? And that's how this whole thing came about.
Great. And I want to go deeper in how that all came about and detail what you do. But if we can backtrack of, you said from interviewing skills, getting a home, all those things you lack. Because we're going to be honest, you guys, as audience look at this from athletes and all, we all have been to that where our thing was that sports vehicle is going to get us out. We're going to make sure our parents and everything. So we really don't pay attention. I can validate for that because when I played collegiate ball, I always tell people, man, I took PE 3 times. My coach never did look at the schedule. All they want to do is make sure that I was having the grades. And I knew if I
Right.
made
You
my
eligible.
schedule, yes, if I made my schedule, it was gonna give me enough time where I can be in the gym to work on my craft because I was competing against girls that was from a whole different city and state. So I'm from this small Birmingham city where we ain't even lifting weights in high school. Now these girls come and cut, and I'm feeling like, oh man. So I was at a crisis when I was playing that I was missing meals. I was in the gym all
Mhm.
the time because I'm like, I got to get to the level of these girls. The only way I can compete is I got to be 10 times better than them. And 10 times better than me mean I lost myself. I can remember coming home one day and my grandma said, baby, come here. Yes, ma'am. She said, what you doing down there? I said, I'm playing sports. She said, you're not on that, is it? And I started laughing. But so many of my peers see me, it was like I was just so small. I couldn't tell that I was small, but I wanted to get cut like them. So it was,
Mhm.
man, they going out. No, I'm not going out. I'm in the gym. The doors open. I'm going. Like I said, I'm missing meals because I'm like, if I get too much, then I ain't gonna be able to run the course. So much was going on with me mentally that I was
Mhm.
struggling with. And another thing that you talked about before this was better communication with coaches. So with
Mhm.
that, could there have been better communications with your coaches to make sure you was learning these actual essential life skills through this sports?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's life lessons in every scenario in sports. And I think our coaches do us a disservice by not pinpointing those things. And even if it takes time, it's like, more practice just to kind of point out like how this translates so that it sticks for us because we spent all of our time in this. You just said it. Like I sacrificed everything else to grind it out in this one lane because this was my ticket. This was my opportunity. So I'm pouring all of my energy into it. I'm watching film. I'm doing extra practice. I'm weightlifting. You know what I'm saying? I had to change my major to fit the practice schedule
Wow.
in the same way as you. Like, everything's focused in that environment. So if that's the fact, then how do you as a coach really help them to articulate about this ain't the only thing? Because coaches know this. Like if you a coach, you probably was a former player.
Mhm.
Like the game ain't gonna be forever. And because you know that, you do them a disservice to let them just focus all their energy in this one space.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's more to life. And how do you take this? What are the lessons that you learned from this? Ask those questions. Like create a space. This is the one thing I wish that we did more of is creating a space, dialogue about things that are happening in the world, dialogue about things that are happening in that individual's life, allowing people to communicate, learn how to communicate, because most of the old school mindset is shut up and listen.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like you gonna do what I say and just deal with it versus having an opinion. And there's studies that say like if you kind of create space and allow your athletes to also feel like they can say something, maybe weigh in on decisions, that athlete feels a little bit more empowered. They are learning how to articulate and communicate, and there's a deeper connection there now. This coach trusts me. Like I can speak my piece, and they're allowing me to speak my piece. But that football experience for me at 9 years old was like shut up and listen, do what I say. Like no space for me to like talk about this ain't right. Like why I'm in a trash bag. Like
Right.
I can't say that. You know what I'm saying? So communication is a big part from the coach's standpoint to be able to articulate down to the players, but also create the space for the athletes to share what's on their mind. Because as a coach, I feel like the biggest piece for you is not only the wins and losses, but it's the relationships. Because you're a father figure, you're a mother figure. You are there influencing those athletes in their lives, and they're going to look up to you. They're going to come to you with everything because you're the main person they see almost every day.
Hmm.
So how do you create space to actually get to know these people and have conversations
Yeah.
and help them? Because a lot of people are running away from things just to get into sports.
Most
And
definitely.
how do you create a safe space for them? You know?
I love that you said dialogue and going back to also that a lot of youth are their only outlet from either something negative happening in their life is the sport. So they're coming there for a reason. So building
Yeah.
a space where coaches can dialogue, because we know a lot of coaches daily work is based on, am I'm going to get a check based on a win? And we hate that because they are now working out of fear. So they're coaching out
Mm-hmm.
of fear, and fear comes to
Mm-hmm.
the trash bags on there. And that's why we're building this platform of this nature to be able to have coaches to speak about those challenges and things they're going through to say, you're not alone. Other coaches are going through this, but we need to make more spaces where you feel okay to talk about these things because as a
Right.
player, you knew that you didn't like those things on that part of it. So dialogue is needed. And another question for you is, do you think it's important that spaces in this nature are built for coaches to hear from former players and other sports leaders talk about these things? But we're not saying it to slander, but to make sure coaches understand and hear from someone and say, hey, these are things that you need to look at.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like you got to hear from all perspectives, and especially if you're a coach who is really intentional about like the work that you do and the role that you play, um, being open to hearing other people's perspectives, your players and former players, um, it helps you. Like we're not saying like we know all the things and we're telling you what to do as a coach, but like for you to hear the different experience and listen to understand versus listening to reflect, like, oh, this person is saying something I don't agree with, I'm gonna reflect back and say something else. No, listen to understand the perspective, and if you kind of soak it in like a sponge, then you can actually kind of empathize with the experience a little bit and try to see how you want to approach it differently. Um, and I know there's a number of stories. Like I said, there's coaches who are former players, so they've been through it. And I think for you to have your own bias and think that your experience was the best way for us to win, so I'm going to keep doing that. That's kind of like a false narrative there. And that's not to say that your way isn't right, but if you really think about the experience of the kid, and you talked about it, these kids nowadays, they're a lot different. They're not built in the same way where you tell them what to do, they're going to follow. They need more instruction, more dialogue. Like, why am I doing this? You know? So how do you create a space where, you can understand their perspective and actually listen to them and help them understand your perspective as well in a way that's more versus enforcing to like here's influencing. I'm going to influence you to kind of follow in this way based upon our mission, our culture as a team. you know. So I think it's important to be open to listening to a lot of different perspectives, and for the coaches to have spaces where they can continue to get development too. Um, you know, I'm fortunate. I contract with this organization called Positive Coaching Alliance, and their whole mission is to help coaches really create a culture of positivity around sports. Not from the standpoint of like happy go lucky, but more from the standpoint of like how do you make the environment enriching for the kids so that they come, they feel like they belong, they have fun, and they're learning life lessons. Because if you do that, it's going to set them up for better success in the future. So then when they get done and I'm talking to them as a life coach, they already know a little bit more about themselves and their values and their and intangibles and things like that. Versus a lot of us right now don't have a clue because all we focused on was wins and losses.
Right. And those win or losses, like you said, can be so detrimental, especially as an adult, because you take that on in your life journey. And then
Mm,
beyond sports, you don't know anything else because you've taken that on, just win and losses, and you believe that's all life is about. And that goes to, again, I want to go deeper into what you do in helping athletes or just individuals beyond sports, because if it goes back to, this was developed based on things that you was not gained when you was a sports
mm-hmm.
player. It's really important and vital, coaches and sports leaders, as he's speaking about what he do, to understand everything is formed for a reason. And it was
Mm-hmm.
things that coaches with more development can provide, so they won't be that person saying, I wish I could have, or where should I go? So going
Right.
into, how did you just dive deeper and say, I'm going to build and I'm going to develop the platform that you have?
I feel like God was continuing to put this thought process in my head about this space of people struggling when they were done. I ran into more people, and the more I ran into them, I was telling them my story, I was hearing their story, and it was very similar, a lot of similarities. And I'm like, okay, this not only just happening to me, it's not only happening to my teammates, it's happening to this player from Georgia, this player from Tennessee, this player from Florida, like everybody experiencing this. And I'm like, why is that the case? And who's helping us? Like
Yeah.
we had a support system. Everybody had a support system getting them to where they got. But then all of a sudden it's gone. And the resources that a lot of these schools talk about, they kind of shut the door. And you're like put out there to kind of fend for yourself. And to me, that was just like, well, what made us successful was that support system, was the coaches, was the people that were pushing us and helping us and supporting us. And now that we have this autonomy to try to figure it out on our own, it's hard. And not to say that you're not supposed to be able to figure it out on your own, but why don't we get a little bit of a bridge or somebody to support us to help us get through the biggest part that people don't really talk about, especially fans, is the identity crisis. They see the glitz and the glam, and these people making money, they doing great things, making great highlights. But how many of them are wondering like what this player is up to now? Like where are they at? Years. I guarantee a lot of them are suffering in silence. That was the biggest like motivator for me to like figure out how I can be a conduit of change and help. And it started off with just me trying to come back to Minnesota and connect back to the place where it started for me and help people in this space. But as I continue to talk to more athletes, I just realized it's just happening everywhere. So I wanted to be able to develop skills to just help specifically in this space. I didn't think about it as I'm going to open a company one day and be a life coach, but it just kind of fell upon me. Like God just continued to push me in a different pathway. And I just answered the call. And my biggest thing is like I lead with my heart to try to help people. And this is the way that I've kind of figured out a lane to do so. So being able to work with individuals through that transitional process has been a blessing to help them find confidence again in themselves and think about the bigger picture of who they want to become versus latching on to the what, which is what we did our whole life. So to help people get clarity on that is something that I'm seeking to continue to do, whether with individuals or groups. And it's all because I still there's a lot of resources that are still needed. So
And I see that you've had several meetups. So kind of talk about those and what those meetups is set around.
yeah, well, coincidentally, actually, I am creating like a meetup community here in Minnesota where I'm at. Essentially, like think about it like this. What I just mentioned this before. You go out into life and we get to try to figure it out on our own, and it's hard. Like we're suffering through it. We don't really have the life skills developed and those resources from a lot of the places, whether teams or institutions. They're available, but it's not easy to access, and the door's kind of shut. So why not create a space for all of us to come together? Everybody's going through something. Everybody's trying to figure out something. And what made us great is our team. Let's create a team out here in life and bring us together on that commonality of that lived experience. And it's not just about like coming together to socialize. Like, yeah, we need that from time to time. And then there are other times where we can actually pour into, hey, how your money doing? Like, how can we help you understand how to navigate this? And everybody's going through something mentally. Let's have a safe space. Let's talk about it. Or you're still trying to figure out your purpose and your why. Let's do a workshop. Let's put it together. Let's create the space where you can get empowered by other athletes who care.
So
That's the vision.
is it based around just athletes, but also former athletes getting together and networking
Yeah,
and building it?
it's definitely former athletes, creating that space for former athletes, pro and collegiate, to come together, and get that opportunity to actually connect. Um, and really, like, the vision is to create this space, but also think about it as these are pockets around the country, or eventually maybe around the world. Got to start local, then end global. That's my thought process. But giving people that sense of community. So if I'm working with somebody individually and we do well and help them figure out their identity and their fulfillment and send them off, I don't just want to send them off. Like, hey, all right, now that you're done, like, tap in. Like, it's community here. Here's some people to connect with. You trying to get into these different spaces. It's really about the people in the
Yeah.
world. And how do you connect with the right people? Well, this is a space that are people who are going to accept you, who know your experience. You can have easy conversations with letting your guards down, and let me put you in that space where you can find more people like that.
And it's definitely needed. I always say it. I recently had posted too on LinkedIn that coaches need coaches, sports members needs other sports members. We need that community to continue to grow because, as you said, we're all battling through something. So it's so
Hmm.
important that we get together and do those different things. But from the standpoint of people not wanting other people to know the challenges and the things that they are struggling with, would you say it's hard for people to commit and raise their hand and say, hey, I need to be a part of this, or I want to be a part of this, feel of shame and doubt?
Yeah, I mean, this is really helpful because a lot of us, like I say, are suffering in silence and don't want to really share their story about their struggle. I know a number of athletes who are embarrassed to come out in public and different spaces because they don't want people to see them like not making it or not in that same light. And you have a little insecurity about it. But a space like this is like, we don't care about all that. Like, we respect you for you and we here to support you. So giving them a sense of calm, to feel like they can just go and be themselves in the space, and everybody has been through something similar,
Yeah.
you know.
Strive
So you
higher.
don't have to.
I'm sorry, because I want to get into the, because you said being common in that space, but you also say strive higher.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how did that compelling name strive higher after sports come with that space?
come about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me individually, always being an achiever and kind of moving forward, but my mantra for life really came about constant growth, I would say. Put myself out there in uncomfortable positions to just try to experience things and take a nugget every day. So striving higher every day became like the calling or the mantra that I had. So when I decided to become a life coach, my thought process was like, how can I not only help people figure out who they are and give them a sense of fulfillment, but how can I also give them a framework to be in the same mindset, to have a growth mindset, essentially, go into life with the glasses half full thought process, being open, experiencing, learning, growing, and evolving, and not thinking that it's all about destinations anymore. Like in sports, we try to strive for a championship every year. Well, you get to the mountaintop, you get to the championship, then what? Life doesn't stop. So how do you continue to seek your evolution? But more specifically, once you understand the core of who you are and who you're trying to become, it becomes easier for you to be intentional about what things you're taking away from each day and how you're growing. That's the process that we go through.
No, I love that because if you guys are listening to what he's saying, it's actually for anyone. I love the specific former athletes, but like you said, after you get to that mountaintop, what's next? And that
Mm-hmm.
goes for a lot of coaches too, because you get all the wins, you coach for 25, 30 years, and then you finally say, I'm retiring. You become that too person of saying, what's next? How do I
Mm-hmm.
keep going? Because now you have to find something else to do to keep on actually propelling that person in you. And what happens sometimes in sports, we get so lost back into that identity that we don't know who we are outside of that win column or outside of that coaching column, that it hurts us. I had a past guest that came on that talked about that. Like when he stopped coaching, he said he didn't know what else to do. He didn't understand off days. He didn't understand that he get to go home and go to sleep. That it was hard for him. That he had to say, "I got to go back into coaching." Because of that. And when he got back
Mm-hmm.
into it, he started noticing, oh yeah, a lot have changed with coaching though. So maybe this don't fit for me right now. But because so much of his life was around it, he was like, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else
Mm-hmm.
job to actually apply for because all I knew is how to coach kids. And that can sometimes be very harmful that you're so in touch with one thing that you don't know anything else outside of yourself.
Yeah, and it's a process that we all go through because we're programmed, right? It's like that really drives you. It makes you tick. It fulfills you. And there's routine, there's structure. Then all of a sudden, there's none of that, and you got to figure it out on your own with no support with that routine and structure. You're like, well, I don't know what to do with all this free space and this empty space, and how do I use it and drive it towards something that's gonna be positive. But I feel like a lot of us go through this process. There's like four stages that I talk about in the transitions, like whether you're an athlete or you're a coach, like you're in it and it's become part of your identity. Then all of a sudden it ends. And normally we don't have control over when it ends. As a coach, maybe sometimes, but if you get fired, you don't. And then when it ends, it just feels like, all right, pieces of you are gone. It's kind of like the end game from Marvel Universe. Like pieces of you are just floating away. Then you're in this neutral space, what's called a neutral zone. And that's when you're trying to figure out, like, who am I? What am I going to do? What's next? I want to go back to doing what I did before. Like, that's the only thing that made me who I was. And you got all these feelings. You start having dreams about being back on the team in these fields. It takes a lot of time to like reflect, accept where you are, and build who you were trying to become before you feel like you've gone past that and you can grow past it and reach that like growth stage. But a lot of us are stuck in this neutral zone because back to the sport because that's the only thing that we have. And I'm here to tell you, like, you got more to offer. Like, yeah, sports is great. In sports, you can do a lot of great things in sports, but you got so many other skills that you've developed through sports that can be amazing in so many fields. And all you got to do is just figure out the things that drive you and just go for it.
I love it. One of the things as we get near of wrapping up, as you guys see, This conversation can go on and on about being just a sports player and the dialogue of it. But I wrote down reflect, accept, and become. I think that is so powerful for individuals, no matter what platform or sports you're on. When it's time for transition, you reflect on it. Like you said, thinking back about being on that field, thinking back about, having that winning shot, but you accept that that's what it was and now become that person that you want to be now and doing
Mm-hmm.
that. And with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, like, what is one play or one thought you want to leave the people with that they can take to accept, reflect, and become? Like, just something you just want to give to the people.
Good point. I would say except that sports is just an engine. It's an element of what you do that is really the shortest career that's out there. And reflect on all the things you gain from it, your values, how you show up, the things that really make you in those spaces, and how it also translates to how you show up with your friends, your family, in other environments. And use that energy of those values and those transferable skills to pour into other places and passions that sometimes you forgot about because you focused all on sport. But I guarantee you it's still there. When you were a kid, you had millions of thoughts and ideas and dreams, and it wasn't just sports. And if you just pause, reflect on that experience and even the time, you can start being creative again. Give yourself permission to be creative again so that you could become something that's totally bigger than just this one element of your life.
Come on now, Steve Jr. Yes, he laid it out. I love it for you guys of being able to get that well said. Now we want to tell the people how can they connect, how can they love on
Yeah.
you, where can they find you?
No doubt. Well, first of all, just thank you for the time. Everybody, I encourage you to follow me on Instagram at shed_AVE. You can find me on there. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so hit me up. And my website is strivehigheraftersports.com, where you can see a lot more about the work that I do, services that I offer. But I encourage you too, like if you are in that space, coach, player, where you just feel like there's nothing else to offer in your life and you don't know who you are outside of this one thing, let's just have a conversation. Let me help you just like get through the mud on that.
Yes, most definitely. As you guys see, he is great at what he does. I love the commonality of your voice to be able to do it. Being a life coach and the work and stuff and feel we have, you got to have it where people are like, okay, I can talk. I can talk to that person.
Mhm.
So thank you for bringing that to the platform. I truly appreciate it. And we know we're going to look forward to you coming back. Don't hesitate. Drop them in the comments below. We're going to make sure you get them. Also, all his information will be down there as well. But y'all know how we end. As always, I tell you guys, don't just talk about change, be the doer of the change that you desire to be.